Hey guys, Treetop Piper back with you. Got a nice cup of Joe here. As well as a cigarette. Anyway, hope you guys watched my last video and seen that there are going to be some changes, or that I've made some changes for the channel. I want it to be a little bit more legitimate, a little bit more professional. Anyways, as the title says, we will be doing a review, a first impression of Presbyterian Mixture. Actually, it's not a first impression. I had a bowl last night, and I gave some information in the review that was false, and I could not in good conscience load that video because the information that I had read before I made the video was totally wrong. And then I looked it up after the video just to make sure, and sure enough, I totally messed up my video because of that. Because this Presbyterian Mixture, I don't know if any of you saw, but earlier this week when Pipe Stud updated his site, he had some tins of Presbyterian for sale, and in the description he said there was absolutely no Latakia whatsoever in Presbyterian, and that it wasn't a Latakia blend, period. Well, that's not true. I looked it up and found out that even the manufacturer stated that what they do is they use Latakia tips. They only use the tips of the Latakia, the tips of the leaves. Which honestly, I didn't believe that there was no Latakia in it anyways, because it clearly has Latakia in it. At least, it's got that smokiness to it. Anyway, just wanted to get that out of the way, and so you guys understand why I wasn't able to, why this isn't a true first impression. So what I've got here is I've got my K. Woody Meerschaum already loaded up with a bowl of Presbyterian, dried and ready to go. But before I get that pipe lit, I decided that I would show you guys what we're working with here. Now I only have a jar, I don't have the tin, because this was a gift from Cobbett of the Shire, and he didn't want to take the chance of it getting held up in customs by sending me a tin, because that can happen. So he sent me the tin card, the little card that comes in the tin, and basically the contents, everything that was inside of the tin, he put into a bag and sent it to me. So I've got this handy dandy clear tray for my scale, my tobacco weighing scale. And I figured I would just give you guys a peek at what we got going on here with this Presbyterian Mixture. Now, it's an excellent blend, no doubt about it, but and you can see it's quite an amalgam of different types of tobaccos. I would classify this as a coarse cut. There's no rhyme or reason to the cut. There are some ribbons, some long ribbons even, and there are quite a few stems and twigs. So beware of that. Before I pack a bowl, I kind of run through what I have laid out and make sure that I'm not going to be smoking any stems. So, like I said, there's a decent, there's a couple stems every time I pull out a bowl's worth. There's one or two stems in there. But like I said, this is very much so just every kind of cut you can imagine. I mean, there's big chunks, little chunks, um, ribbon. I mean, there's everything. I'm gonna try and show you something like see there you got a ribbon. You've got a little piece of ribbon there. Here we've got one of those little, just odd shaped chunks. Little bits of latakia. Just every kind of cut that you can imagine. I mean, it's a coarse cut. I would classify this as a coarse cut. Burns nicely, regardless of the cut. I mean, I don't mind this cut at all, or this type of tobacco presentation. See there, I think that's a big old chunk of stem there. Big old chunk of stem. Some of them are long chunks of stem, some of them aren't. But anyway, that's what the tobacco looks like, and let's get the jar note here. Go ahead and put this back. And also, I just wanted to say, if you guys are pleased with the changes, the backdrop and how I have everything set up, my presentation, let me know. Let me know how you feel about this, because, I don't want to. This is about you guys. This is about how you guys feel. And I'm sure some of you guys didn't care. But I want to do this right. So I decided to go ahead and make some changes, set up a little studio, and do it right. Do it how it should be done. No distractions, no background stuff in the background. Just me, the tobacco, my pipe, and you guys. So, without further ado, let's get this on. Definitely has a very Balkan-y smell. It's definitely a Balkan style smell to it. Somewhat Oriental forward. The smell, but it has a sweetness from the Virginias, I suppose. A little bit of a smokiness from the Latakia. It does have a campfire smell to it, but it also has this sweetness to the smell. It's not as sharp and smoky as some Latakia blends can be, as some Balkan blends can be. It definitely has this nice, round, complex smell. Very nice. It's a very nice smell. Smoky, sour from those Orientals, and it's got that sweetness from the Virginias they use. Whatever Virginias they use are just outstanding. And the proportions of this blend, because they're using all the same ingredients as any other Balkan or Latin or English blend, but it's the proportions that makes it unique. And I'm going to get into that now. I'm going to go ahead and get this pipe lit. To go ahead and do the charring light. Excuse me. I have got to quit smoking cigarettes. They're killing me, literally. Most likely, anyway. Hacking up nasty stuff in the morning. I've just got to kick it. By the way, the contents that I was sent, since I didn't open the tin, I couldn't tell you exactly the moisture content from the tin. But where it is now, I immediately jarred it up once I received it. But where it is now, it's pretty much Goldilocks. It's pretty much perfect. It's just right. I let this bit sit out for 5 minutes or less, and it's perfect. There's our little bit of a charring light. Here's my tiki tamper, courtesy of Scotch and Pipes. If you haven't seen his channel, I suggest you do. He's a good guy. Good guy, smokes good tobacco. Anyway, on to the review. Has a very lovely room note, I would say, for a Balkan blend or for an English blend. Personally, I would say it's a Balkan blend, but it has a bit more of a natural sweetness to it, I guess, from the Virginias that are used. So it's got a little bit more of a rounder flavor than a typical Balkan blend, like, say, Skiff Mixture or the King Charles blend. Those are a little drier. And what I mean by dry is not sweet. There's not much sweetness to those blends. They're more sour, they're drier, smokier. Not necessarily smokier, but they don't have that added bit of sweetness that really rounds out the flavor. I mean, those are awesome blends, don't get me wrong. I love those blends to death. But it's nice. This is a nice change of pace from a regular Balkan. Like I said, it's got this really nice sweetness to it. It's not cloying or like super sweet. It's just enough sweetness to round it out, to really make it a full flavor. You know, it's not a one-trick pony. Very lovely flavors. The retrohale's really nice. You get that pungency from the Orientals, the smokiness from the Latakia, and that's more or less in the background, I would say, the Latakia is. The Orientals seem to be the star of the show, more or less. But the Virginias are spot on because they add that bit of sweetness, because I know there's no Cavendish in this. This is a Latakia, or this is a Virginia Oriental Latakia blend. So my guess is, obviously, whatever Virginias they're using, they're exceptionally sweet, or they have added a little bit more Virginia to the mixture to give it that added bit of sweetness. It's a very complex blend, though. This isn't a monotone blend, or you know, it's just not at all. It has a very full, complex flavor. Stays pretty lit, or stays lit pretty well. Burns down to a fine white ash. Doesn't get too hot. Not in my experience, anyway. I've had maybe 2.5 bowl. This is my. I think I've had 1.5 bowl. This will be the second, basically the second full bowl I've had. And again, the Virginias make their presence known because, like I said, a lot of Balkan blends, the Orientals stand out front, and it makes it a more a drier smoke. It's not so sweet. It's spicy and sour, and has the smokiness of the Latakia. Whereas this one, because the Virginia component is a little bit more prominent, you get the sourness of the Orientals, but there's a sweetness to it as well that's really nice, really nice. And I totally understand why this blend is really tough to find. I understand why it's sold out most places. Um, it's just got a really nice flavor. It's a really enjoyable Balkan style tobacco. Like I said, the main stars of the show, I think, on this are the Orientals and the Virginia. There's a slight smokiness in the background, but what I'm getting is a sweet Oriental flavor. It's like, an Oriental flavor that has an added sweetness. It's really nice. It's almost like they found a particular grade of Oriental that has the sweetness of Virginias, but I mean, that's not the case. It's the added Virginias that's making that happen. But I can pick the Virginias out, but it really comes off more as like a really sweet Oriental, like um, like they chose a really sweet Oriental leaf for this. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's the Virginias impart that bit of sweetness, that fullness that you don't get from a lot of Balkan blends. And honestly, I mean, if you're a Balkan fan, this is going to be kind of a surprise to you when you smoke it. That fullness of the flavor, that sweetness that's in there, it's kind of a surprise. It really is. You don't expect it. You don't. It doesn't. It comes out a little bit in the jar note, but not nearly as much as when you start puffing on the tobacco. And as you smoke it down, that sweetness kind of intensifies. And I still get that pungent retrohale feeling from the Orientals and the Latakia. It's very sinus clearing almost. It's very pleasant, but like I said, there's that sweetness in there. And to me, that is what sets this blend apart from all the other Balkans. I think that's why this blend sells out. That's why this blend is out of stock everywhere, because it has this sweetness that you don't typically get from a Balkan. Um, I can see why this blend has been around forever. Since World War I, people have been smoking this blend, and since and when it did come about, the people that were smoking this were the aristocracy of England. They were the big time ministers, the prime ministers, the top clergymen. That's why it's named Presbyterian Mixture, because the guy who came up with the recipe was a sometime clergyman. Like he was I don't think he was a bishop. He was some sort of a here and there. He filled in for high-ranking clergymen, something like that. If you do some research, you'll see he was a Scotsman. He was a Scotsman, and I guess he must have been a Presbyterian, but he had something to do with the clergy in England or in Great Britain. And as you get further down, the Virginias really do start to stand out. Um, I almost want to say that that there is no one forward flavor. The Virginias and the Orientals and the Latakia. The Latakia isn't so much of a player. It's between the Orientals and the Virginias that really make this blend. It's what's happening between them two. Um, it's very complex though, because you have that little bit of smokiness, and then you have this really sweet roundness to the Orientals. I mean, it's not something that that a lot of Balkan blends have. Typically, I think Balkan blends, they're not heavy on the Virginias. I think they're typically more Oriental forward and Latakia forward, whereas the Virginias are in the back seat. So you don't get a lot of sweetness out of them. Whereas this one, I think the Virginias just have a much bigger presence in this blend, and it's nice. It really is. It really adds to the fullness. It adds to the flavor. It makes it a more satisfying smoke, I would almost say. Um, Although I wouldn't say that this is better than some of my favorites like Exotic Mixture or the King Charles or Penzance, because those blends have their own unique characteristics that really grab my attention, whereas this one does the same thing but for different reasons. And it's so darn hard to get. I don't think I could keep this in my rotation. I don't think I could steadily smoke this, because I would end up running out and then just being flat out of luck, and not being able to get any more. Well, I couldn't just order it snap like that. I would have to have somebody overseas buy it for me, which is how I got this. It wouldn't be it would be somewhat of a task for me to get any more. So for now, it's probably going to be more of like a once a week type smoke. Something that I do more occasionally rather than routinely. It'll be an occasional smoke. It's like every time I puff on it, that sweetness makes itself a little bit more pronounced. Really nice though. Like I said, I get that nice pungency in my my sinuses from the retrohale, but I get a sweetness in the mouth. So it's like it really is a complex blend. It's got a whole lot it's got a whole lot going on for it. And I really, I can. And Berg was telling me that Joe Case, I think the guy's name is, one of his original idols, YouTube idols, one of his favorite guys to watch. This was in his top 5 for several years, apparently. And Berg said he had always tried to find it, could never get a hold of it, which I sent him a sample. And I totally understand why this was in that guy's top 5 for years. It's, uh, it's a very unique blend, and it just has a lot going for it. It really does. It really does. A nice sweet, and when I say sweet, I don't mean like aromatic sweet or even Cavendish sweet. I mean a Virginia sweet. A um, nice natural sweetness that that really takes the sharpness off of the Orientals and the Latakia. You know how sometimes they can be quite sharp and pungent. Well, that sweetness kind of tones that down a little bit, so it makes it um, a much more I don't know, balanced. I guess you could say it's got a lot more complexity because of that, and you know, I was kind of tempted to say that this is a mellow blend, but I don't think it really could be classified as a mellow blend because it is quite bold. Um, like I said, there is a pungency to that it gives your sinuses. It's got a lot of flavor. It really does. This blend has a lot of flavor. It's got a lot going for it. Great after dinner blend, probably. I don't know if I would classify this as an all day blend, but it really hits the spot. It really hits the spot, especially if you're feeling some Orientals or some Latakia, or even I would even say that if you're into stronger Virginias, like Stonehaven or Rich Dark Flake, stuff like that, the ones that have a little bit more of a kick, full Virginia flake, and you're looking to get into Englishes, this would be a good transition because it has that nice sweetness that you're used to with the Virginias. Yesterday was really the first time that I actually sat down, smoked a bowl, and I recorded a video, sat down, smoked a bowl, and I was just really surprised. I mean, it was a really pleasant surprise. The complexity and that nice sweet that nice sweetness to it. Like I said, I think the main players here is the Orientals and the Virginias, and the Latakia just adds that touch of smokiness that really makes it an awesome Balkan blend. Now, I don't know if everybody else would classify this as a Balkan blend, but I would. I would say that this is a Balkan style blend that is a little more Virginia forward than typical Balkan blends. Um, Not to say that it is Virginia forward, but it has a little bit, the presence of the Virginia is more than in a typical Balkan blend. I mean, it definitely makes its presence known through that sweetness. And I'm loving it. I mean, it really is. I would put this in my top 10, which is saying something, definitely. Almost reminds me of Special Latakia Flake, how sweet it is. Although I would say Special Latakia Flake is even more Virginia forward than this is. The difference between this and like Special Latakia Flake is Special Latakia Flake is like Virginia Latakia forward, whereas the Orientals take the back seat. Whereas this one, it's Virginia Orientals and the Latakia takes the back seat. So you don't get quite as much of a sweet, smoky flavor as you would with Special Latakia. It's more of a sweet, sour flavor because of the Orientals and the Virginias. But it's just a really nice blend, you know. And honestly, last night I seen on Reddit somebody was selling 100 gram tin of this for $35, and I should have grabbed it. I should have grabbed it. Although I can probably get this if I want, anytime I want. So I'm not too worried about it. I've got quite a bit left. I mean, I could probably smoke this whenever I want for a couple months, and I probably wouldn't run out. So if you do get the opportunity to try this stuff or to get yourself a tin, I would suggest you do, especially if you're a Balkan fan or a English fan. I mean, this is like, I don't want to say it's a quintessential English, but um, it's it's a storied English blend. It's got a ton of history, a ton of history for a Balkan slash. It's like Balkan Sobrani, it just has history. Same thing with really Balkan Sobrani. That's probably, I mean, the only other blend that's got that much history and I mean, that's been around that long and is just that storied. I mean, this literally has, it's almost like a legend. This Presbyterian mixture. it's damn near. I mean, it's legendary. This is a legendary mixture, and I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. But this is a 30-minute video already, guys, and I don't want to keep dragging on and on about it. I feel like I've done it due justice, and I'm gonna go ahead and just finish this bowl. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope you enjoy your Friday night. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I sincerely hope that you guys are happy with the changes that I've made. As always, comments are always welcome. Comments are cherished in my mind. Any constructive criticism you can give. Any feedback whatsoever is just greatly appreciated. So, without further ado, I will let you guys go. Piper Downs, over and out. Ugh. I still haven't gotten that down pat. Treetop Piper, over and out.